All right, we'll be live in like 20 seconds. All right. Hello, and welcome back to 1,000 Conversations, the Power Lunch series. I'm your lovely and charming host, yet again, Rebecca Evans, Sustainability Specialist with the City of Ithaca. And it sounds like we have some folks outside of New York State on the call today. So to all of you, welcome to the coolest city in the world, both literally and figuratively as we get towards the middle of November. Power Lunches are a project of the 1,000 Conversations initiative where we talk about kind of the geekier side of the Green New Deal. So stuff like tech and economics and jobs. So do make sure to tune in on Wednesdays at noon right here on our YouTube channel. And please also keep in mind that we have the lovely Lariah on YouTube chat who will be funneling your questions into our panelists. So please do feel free to submit your questions that way, or of course, you can submit them via the form in our newsletter ahead of time. Ultimately, we're here for you and to answer your questions. So please do interact with us and we'll make sure that all of your questions do get answered, whether it's here live or through a frequently asked questions page. If you do want to stay in the loop on all things 1,000 Conversations, please do visit our website, 1000conversations.org. And today, we've got a bit of a hot topic on the docket that I think a lot of people have been really looking forward to at least talking about. So whether you saw it in the Ithaca Voice or the Washington Post, or if you were lucky enough to see it in the Onion, you've heard that the City of Ithaca's Common Council passed a resolution last week that kicks off a first of its kind program to electrify every single building in the City of Ithaca. And today we have the mad scientists behind this revolutionary program. First, we have our very own Dr. Luis Aguirre-Torres, Chief Mad Scientist and Director of Sustainability with the City of Ithaca. And we're very lucky we'll be joined by Donnel Baird, CEO of BlocPower out of Brooklyn, New York, very, very shortly. So welcome. And Luis, I'm hoping that we can start things off just with you kind of describing the RFP process and kind of your thoughts behind the electrification program and how it can contribute to Ithaca's Green New Deal.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that lovely introduction. Mad scientists, what the hell? Anyway, so as everybody knows, the City of Ithaca has committed to, to full decarbonization, and we are the first city in the entire planet to do this. So we are really, really excited. This is a very complicated project, but it's something that is absolutely necessary. The City of Ithaca has never, ever shied from a challenge, from doing something different, doing something that, to be honest, the entire planet should be doing. In 2019, we had a resolution, unanimously approving the Ithaca Green New Deal, which really meant for the very first time that we were making a serious commitment to fight climate change, to fight also historical inequities, economic inequality, and social injustice. The idea was to do something different and something for this planet. And obviously, COVID got in the way, many things happened in between, but then eventually we make it to 2021. And then we decided, like, okay, we need to get serious because we have even less time. And then the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change publishes this document that says, oh, guess what? We were wrong. We actually have less time than we thought. And then we continue. And then, we have the Climate Summit, and the US presents this, proposal for net zero for the entire country. So basically, we're doing the right thing at the right time, but we're going, where nobody else has gone before. So we are trying to actually honor our commitment to the community for full decarbonization of the entire economy. So we're starting with the building stock. And why are we doing that? Well, when you look at the emissions that we have in the city, the sources of emissions, you need to look at buildings, then you need to look at transportation, and then you need to look at the electric grid. And really, that's it. It's an oversimplification, perhaps, but we're talking about 97% of the emissions just from those three sources. So why not tackle the one that is going to be most difficult, especially because our great sustainability coordinator, Nick Goldsmith, he had already tackled existing buildings. We have a very advanced, very progressive energy code supplement that is going to help us remove natural gas, remove propane, remove fuel oil from all new buildings and major renovations, in just a few years. So what we are trying to do now is to address existing buildings. So here, we're not trying to take anything away from anybody. We're not trying to take away your right to decide for yourself or to do anything. But at the same time, we have this mandate as government to make sure that the community is not harmed by pollution, by poor air quality, or make sure that they live in the right conditions and the standard of living is equal among everybody in the community. So, we decided to go first for building decarbonization. And what does that mean? Okay, we'll address that in a little bit more detail because we have a super expert in what decarbonization actually means. But before I get into what that specifically means, what we try to do is to make sure that we use energy in the most efficient possible way in the city. That is, every building, we're going to try to make it as efficient as possible because every so often we turn on the heating, but we also open the window. That doesn't make any sense. But sometimes you don't need to open the window. There is a hole or there is a leak, or at some point it's just not properly insulated. So that's not energy efficient. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that things are energy efficient, the right windows, the right frame for the windows, the right ventilation system, that the whole building is tight. But also, if you have a tight building, imagine that you have a properly insulated building and, finally nothing escapes, no heat, no cool air or anything. But imagine then that what you need to do is to you need to dry your clothes, you need to cook, or you need to heat space or water. And, if you are doing this with fossil fuels, that is, if you're burning natural gas, propane, or fuel oil to do any of these activities, there's going to be, very poor air quality. Even if it has vents, there's going to be a poor air quality inside the building. So we need to address that too. Also, we just need to remove this reliance we have on fossil fuels. So what we want is, if you have a furnace, if you have a system that works with fossil fuels, we can replace it for heat pumps. The technology has matured. The technology is right there, so we can use it. At the same time, if you are heating water, with a gas boiler, we can change that and have a heat pump also for that. Or we can change, your cooktops and have induction cooktops, or we can change your clothes dryer for an electric one, or we can even imagine going beyond that, having solar panels on everybody's rooftop, or having an EV charging station. Imagine the future, and that's what we're going for. So, the reason we're here today is because, last week, Common Council and the mayor approved something that has absolutely no precedent in the entire planet. It's a whole city that is looking to decarbonize, and they're very serious about it. And we are willing to do this and do it before anybody else and figure out how to do it. It's a very complicated process. We're going to try to do it as well as possible. We're going to find a few things along the way that we need to correct, but you know what? We're going to have to, learn and work together to make sure that it happens in the right way. So right now, I want to welcome, Donnel to the conversation. Donnel Baird, he is the CEO of BlocPower, and he's my friend. I'm very proud to call him my friend. He's one of the nicest dudes you will ever meet. I hope all of you will get the chance to meet him. So Donnel, welcome to the Power Launch.
I am super excited to be here. Ithaca is gorgeous. It's so exciting to be with all of you. We're honored and delighted to have the opportunity to participate in this historic moment. You guys have one of the best leaders in the world in Luis, and we are super excited to partner with all of you. Looking forward to learning more about your questions and figuring out how we can be helpful.
Well, that is fantastic. I can tell you in advance, one of the questions people have, everybody's wondering what decarbonization actually means. What does it mean to retrofit a building? What does it mean to electrify thermal loads? But, we can get into the technical details. But people want to know, who's behind this. The city basically approved, the Common Council approved that the mayor, could go ahead and sign a contract with a company called BlocPower. This is not a company that people knew in our community, but it's a company that is changing the world. And I am super proud that we're working with you guys. But, I think it's much better if it comes from you. So if somebody were to ask you, who is BlocPower? Why is BlocPower doing this? Beyond the business or anything, why would you do something like this? Take on such a challenge,
That's the right question, but it's still a hard question, Luis, to answer honestly and thoughtfully. But the answer for me, and I think for Cullen and for Keith and other folks on the call, is we have kids I mean, I have a 6-year-old, and when he's my age, I'm very concerned about what his life will be like given the current trajectory of the climate crisis. And so what BlocPower is a response to that concern. We wanted to build a platform that connected computer software and cutting edge machine learning and software from Silicon Valley. We wanted to figure out how to access capital from the New York State government, Green Bank, from the federal government. We wanted to figure out how to partner with the best of local community leaders, rabbis and pastors and imams and school principals and teachers and civic associations and bowling leagues. In our view, American society has 3 sections. One is the private sector, another one is the government, the third is the citizenship sector, where we pay taxes and where we send our kids to school and where we're part of our local neighborhood association or part of our house of worship. And what's needed to address the climate crisis is a strategy that connects all 3 parts of society together around the shared goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so BlocPower is an attempt to do that. We created a public benefits corporation. What that means is, in a normal corporation, investors may invest money, and the leaders of the company, myself, Cullen, Keith, others, would be legally obligated to maximize profits. But we chose to create BlocPower as a public benefits corporation, which allows us to maximize carbon emissions and greenhouse gas reductions as our goal. And that is the goal of all of our corporations and all of our investors legally. Like, we're not just talking about it, like that's the legal goal. So for example, if one of our investors decided to sue us because we decided to do something that was good for the planet and good for the future of all of our children and grandchildren, but it was bad financially, they'd lose because we've set up the legal structure of our company to allow us to access private capital, but be a bridge towards the broader sustainability goals that we have. And the short version is, and Luis can lead us through the more complicated conversation, but the short version is, just if you think about a Tesla, we don't agree with everything that Tesla says and does. But when you look at the technology, you have an automobile that is using fossil fuels, burning it to produce energy and emitting greenhouse gases. And Tesla and all the other electric car companies are replacing that fossil fuel system. They're ripping that system out of the automobile. They're replacing it with all electric, smart, clean energy engines to run those vehicles. And that's what we can now do for buildings. And so we want to figure out how to do that for buildings in Ithaca and all over New York State and all over the country. And we're very, very pleased and honored to be able to partner with residents of the city of Ithaca to share that journey and that mission. You guys have one of the most important missions in the world right now, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm still in Scotland. I'm in Edinburgh, Scotland at the climate talks, at dinners here, in the hallways, in panels. People are talking about Ithaca here, all the way over here in Europe and in Scotland. You all have inspired people in Glasgow and in Edinburgh and from all over the world. Folks in the UK, folks in Asia are talking about Ithaca. And we're honored to be a part of your journey. So I'll stop there.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. That was really helpful. And we will take any and all kudos from people on this call and in the audience. Those messages of congratulations are encouraged. But you mentioned a little bit about financing. I think that's been one of the more popular questions that we've received. So I'm wondering if there are any Redditors on the call. There's a subreddit called ELI5, which is Explain It Like I'm 5. So basically, can you dumb down the financing model for us and then also explain how that translates to an individual homeowner? How does that impact individual homeowner financing?
I'm happy to start. If that's is that for me or is that for Luis, Rebecca?
That's for both, but you took the microphone. It's all yours, man.
Oh, okay, great. I'll talk quickly, and I know Cullen, our chief financial officer, may have things to add. So,
yep.
The truth is that fossil fuel energy is actually expensive. It's going to be more expensive this winter as prices go up. Natural gas is going to go up, almost 10%. The price of oil is going to go up even further. So fossil fuels are expensive, and when we burn them in our homes, they also make us sick, which has a bunch of costs in terms of causing asthma and sending kids to the emergency room with asthma attacks. So fossil fuels can be really, really expensive. And if you think about building a gas pipeline, it costs billions of dollars to get the permits, the infrastructure to run the gas pipeline. So all this stuff is really expensive as a system to power buildings and cities with fossil fuels, digging them up from the ground, all that stuff. So in some ways, clean energy, the costs are plummeting and collapsing. And clean energy can actually save people money from their current costs, particularly when you can stretch out the cost of switching over to clean energy over 10 years, over 15 years, over 20 years. So if I was talking to my 6-year-old, I would say, hey, we just moved into a new house. Mommy and daddy didn't have enough money to purchase the house entirely up front. So we had to borrow money from a bank, and we needed a long time to pay back the bank, right? Because it's so much money that we're borrowing for this house that we need 15 or 30 years to pay back the bank and stretch out that payment over time in order to make this house affordable to us via a mortgage. And so what we want to do is we don't want to offer people mortgages through this program. At least BlocPower does not. Because if you don't pay your mortgage, there's a risk of default and you get into all sorts of stuff. But we think you can lease clean energy equipment to homeowners the way you lease a car to folks. And if you lease it to them, you don't run into all the complications of mortgages, but you also get to share the benefits of clean energy to homeowners, which is that they save money, the buildings are healthier, the buildings are more profitable, they're in compliance with all of the laws and mandates of the City of Ithaca and of New York State to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so that's how we think about financing. Financing is really just stretching out the cost of an upfront purchase, and you're spreading it out over 10 years or 15 years or 30 years. And that's the heart of the program that we want to offer here. Cullen, Luis?
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I think that's the real core of it, right? An investment needs to be made, right? You need to build something, you need to do something, and these systems, they generate savings. So we work to make it so that people can put something in that they know they need that will help increase quality of life and save money, and that they can pay as they save, right? So that's sort of the point of financing, is that the savings can help cover the payments, and the longer you can stretch out the financing, the more that the savings can cover those payments. The interesting thing here too is that the technology is, while it's not super new, it may be technology that a lot of folks aren't familiar with. And so through the type of program that we've been thinking of, we can actually take care of it, fix it if it breaks, and guarantee that it will work for the whole term that the contract goes. So it's not like, oh, it's just a loan or it's a mortgage or the financing is set up to take anything from anyone. It's really a pay over time, pay as you save. And if the thing is not working for you, it's like a relationship to keep the system working and performing.
That's cool, man. I mean, it's kind of nice when somebody knows what they're talking about and are able to explain it, in such an easy way. But and Donnel, you're not gonna get away without talking about this, man, because like we live in exciting times. We had to suspend the COP last year. We couldn't have it, so we ended up postponing it 2 years. And last year was the time when everybody was gonna ratify the Paris Agreement. It kind of helped because we had a change of administration and a change of heart in the United States. So now that we went instead of last year, we actually were able to commit to more things. And I know that while you were in Glasgow, there were other people there. I know that Vice President Harris was there. I know that the Secretary of Energy was there. And I know they were talking about heat pumps. And, we have a question, for example, talking about electric heating is really expensive. And I know the technology has evolved. And I believe you had a conversation about that, about heat pumps with the Vice President and the Secretary of Energy. Could you just tell us some more about that?
Yeah, we did get to spend a few hours with the Vice President and the Secretary of Energy, and also Senator Gillibrand. And all we talked about was heat pumps. We talked a little bit about electric trucks, but we mostly talked about heat pumps. And we met in a big warehouse, and they actually brought a bunch of heat pumps out. And the Vice President and the Secretary of Energy and Senator Gillibrand, we talked about heat pumps for a good 45 minutes. And they actually announced a national initiative around heat pumps, that now the United States government, the policy of the United States government is spreading heat pumps throughout America, because heat pumps are now the best technology for buildings. That wasn't always the case. As Luis mentioned, 10 years ago, heat pumps were not as advanced as they are today. But neither were laptops and neither were smartphones. And, now every time I want to pull into a parking spot, the car sometimes can park itself for me, right? So technology advances every year, and heat pumps have advanced dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years. And so what we were explaining to the Vice President is that the Secretary of Energy has all kinds of research laboratories that work for her. She has one in Tennessee. She has another in Colorado. She has one in Berkeley. She has a couple on the East Coast as well, in Texas. And so they have all these laboratories with all these scientists, and their whole job is to just study what's the best technology for America. And they study everything from nuclear to oil to gas to geothermal to heat pumps. And they have made the recommendation as the US government that heat pumps are one of the most important technologies that are available. The United States government has put in the research, they've done the diligence, and they're actually providing billions and billions and billions of dollars to help homeowners to use heat pumps. And so the goal of the event last week was to brief the Vice President on how great heat pumps are. And then the Vice President felt comfortable with it. And so she made an announcement that the United States policy was indeed to continue to promote heat pumps throughout the country. And it just so happened that the first city in the country who are going to be acting on this policy is the city of Ithaca.
And that is awesome, man, because the way I'm looking at what's happening right now with climate is, this call for action. Finally, we really want people to participate, to be part of this. The decision makers, we already saw that what happens. We have a Paris Agreement, and they make these commitments, they come back, and Congress doesn't support them, the administration doesn't support them. So, it's for the states, it's for the cities to take matters into their own hands. And now that we did, it goes back to the leaders, and they see, okay, yeah, if we don't do it, they will do it without us. So it's better that we do it together.
Yeah, that's right. I think, Luis, it can feel very disempowering, if you're in Glasgow and you're watching the negotiations and you're like, man, I don't know if the United Nations is going to be able to get us where we need to go. Or I don't know if, the United States Senate is going to be able to vote. Well, all that stuff is true, and that's all well and good, but we're actually in charge, right? The people of Ithaca are now the leaders of the climate movement around the world. Not to put any pressure on you, but the pressure is there because people from around the world are looking to you all as the leaders individually in all of your buildings and all of your homes and your schools. You're now in charge, right? And you get to decide what happens with climate change in Ithaca and New York State, around America and around the world. And I think that's really exciting. I agree with you, Luis, 100%. We don't have to sit around and wait for other people to make decisions for us. We can act and lead the way on climate change. And I'd rather take my son's future into my own hands because I know that I'm going to do everything I can to build a brighter future for him and for all the kids and grandkids around the world. So I agree with you 100%.
And, one of the things that I really enjoy is, talking to people that think the same way. because like very often we're challenging each other, and the one challenge that people make. I came here 6 months ago. I've been in this position not very long, but the one thing that people tell me is like, are you here for real? Are you part of this community? You want to be part of this community and the future of this community? And now it's BlocPower, because like what Common Council approved last week is basically this marriage, this partnership that is going to help decarbonize the entire city. So let me ask you the same question they asked me. Are you for real, man? Are you going to stick around? Are you going to do this? Are you going to see this done? Like I am intending to do that. How about you? Can you reassure the community that you are here to stay?
Oh yeah, we'll be here for the next 20 years. We're going to sign contracts and legal agreements. But more than that, we want to be here. We're probably going to purchase a few buildings in Ithaca where we'll be based. We will probably have a house or two that we buy in Ithaca so that we have places to stay. We'll have full-time offices and employees at Ithaca. This is a marriage, and we're honored. I mean, we're the participant in the marriage who's really lucky to be there and glad to be at the altar. I think Ithaca's the leader here. I think what you guys are doing is extraordinary, and we're just honored and delighted to have the chance to participate in this. And we will, of course, follow through. I think one of the things about BlocPower is we've completed projects in over 1,200 apartment buildings around the country. And we've been working on that for 7 years. But before that, I've spent about 11 years in the green buildings industry. And one of the things I'm really proud of is over those 11 years, if you talk to any one of the 25,000 families whose homes we've been involved in, we haven't gotten it right 100% of the time. I would say probably 95, 96% of the time we get it right. But in the times where we get it wrong, we stay with those customers until we get it right. And so we follow through to make sure that when we tell a partner that we're going to do something, that we do it. And we have tried to be very consistent and to operate with integrity for over a decade. And we'll continue to do so for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So there's a bunch of legal agreements and commitments that we have that help to, help people to trust us, because there's obligations that we have that we're making that are legal and public commitments and that matter, and there's accountability. But also our intention as a public benefit corporation, the whole reason we're here is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And so we are gonna, this is real, we're gonna help to decarbonize the city of Ithaca. It will be one of the first cities on the planet to decarbonize, and it will lead the way for other cities around the world. There's no higher priority that we have, and we will be with you the whole way.
That's a really good point. Hoping that this kind of catalyzes some change across the country. Ithaca is a really small town and ultimately kind of a drop in the ocean in terms of global climate emissions. But that's actually a really good segue. Ithaca is a small town, and there are some really stark differences between Ithaca and Brooklyn and New York City. So I'm wondering if maybe, Donnel, you could explain how your approach and maybe even how your work might change between what you guys are used to in Brooklyn and this crazy little town of Ithaca, New York.
Sure. So BlocPower has projects all over the country. We have projects in Maine, in Rhode Island, in Chicago, in Milwaukee, in Los Angeles, in Portland, in Seattle, in Iowa, in Idaho, in Georgia, in Las Vegas. There's talk of us doing some projects in Texas with the city of Houston, but we're not there yet. And also Alabama and Louisiana. So we have projects all over the country. And the reason that we wanted to do that is we wanted to learn the best ways to think about doing projects all over the country. We have projects in rural New York, in Margaretville, in the Catskills mountain range, further up by the Finger Lakes. And so we have projects in, I believe, 18 cities across New York State and dozens of cities across America, and have been learning a lot about the different rhythms and patterns and ways of doing business and ways of relating to one another. Some of that's good, some of that's bad. But we've learned a lot about how to partner with people in different parts of the country and different parts of the state. The New York State government is an investor in our company, which is an example of the type of capital that we take in and the type of partnership that we have. But they're pretty good about introducing us around to people that we need to know. So that's the first point. I would say the second point is we strongly believe in community advisory boards. So in our role, our job is to set up an advisory board of leaders from Ithaca who you guys know, who you guys respect, similar to your city council, who are principals and imams and rabbis and pastors, who may be executive directors at the social service organization or at the community center. And we form an advisory board that helps to guide and inform us on the needs of Ithaca specifically. And so one of the very first things we're going to do is have a set of listening sessions like this one, but where the BlocPower team will, visit Ithaca in person. I think I'll be out there next week. And a bunch of us will be in and out of town. We will listen to the needs and guidance and thoughts of community leaders and collect all of that information into a database. We'll be very publicly transparent about what we learn. And then we will start to, as we start to hire and staff this program together, all of those employees and executives that we bring in will be people who will be selected by Luis and community residents and the community advisory board to reflect the values that Ithaca has. So we really want to be deliberate about learning from the folks who live in Ithaca about what makes Ithaca so special and making sure that that is incorporated into the program. We're not here to dictate anything from on high or make rules because we know that we don't understand all the ins and outs and details of what's going on in Ithaca. Our job is to create a community advisory board that does understand what Ithaca needs and what's going on in Ithaca, and then to partner with that community board and to partner with Luis and the mayor and all of the council and everyone that's represented to implement the vision that Ithaca has for itself. So we're a facilitator. We're like a midwife, right? We're not carrying the baby. We're not giving birth to the baby. That's all Ithaca. Like, this is your vision. You guys have to bring this vision to term. What we will do is help to deliver it, right? So the heavy lifting's on you, and we want to be clear about that. But our job is to use our knowledge and expertise about a particular set of skills and workflows that we are very good at to help you guys bring your vision to reality.
Thank you. And we have a ton of questions coming in through the chat. So just ask that folks please be patient. We are recording all of these questions and we'll do our best to answer them. I'm going to try and fire a couple off all at once. Luis, there are a lot of questions about heat pumps and geothermal and air source heat pumps. And I'm afraid we're losing sight a little bit of the efficiency piece. So I'm wondering if you can, one, describe for us how that plays into this program, and then how that can help support local workforce development. And then if you have time, talk a little bit about timeline for this program. I know that was a lot all at once, but I'm trying to cover our bases here.
Well, we only have an hour. This is an amazing topic to talk about. And I really think that we should try to cover as much, but if not, then we're going to create a website and soon this website will be publicized, and we're going to have a frequently asked questions section where all of your questions are going to be there. And, we're going to try to be helpful in answering all of these questions. I'm going to start with something that you didn't ask, but I saw, being asked in the chat. It has to do with whether our grid is green enough. I mean, is this worth it? On one hand, yes, it is. I mean, as green as it is right now, it is worth it. mean, at the end of the day, what we need to do is to slowly move away from fossil fuels. So we need to do it as a matter of principle, but also because we are going to reduce emissions. We're going to be more energy efficient at the same time. And then we do have a program, community choice aggregation, that expects to be implemented and procure 100% renewable energy at some point. We're also going to double the amount of solar that we have in the city. So yeah, we're going to increase, the amount of renewable energy that comes into the distribution grid. So we're going to reduce the dependency on the utility company and on fossil fuels and on natural gas power electricity. So that's one on one hand. On the other, yeah, we're talking about heat pumps. And when I was doing my research in preparation for the RFP, I was looking at, what other countries were doing, what they were focusing on. And, air source heat pumps, have evolved. Now you have Finland with 70% penetration of heat pumps. Talk about cold weather, right? So right now, these things are possible. And there is the ground source heat pumps, there are geothermal district systems, for example. We are considering all of them. It's a different cost structure for all of them. In some cases, it's all about the capex, it's all about the operations, it's all about whether we can actually legally do something, for example, with district heating. So we are taking all of this into account, and we are also trying to find, who are the suppliers that provide the most reliable yet energy efficient device, so we can actually use those here in our city. The volume that we have gives us an advantage, gives us leverage, so we can actually negotiate for better products, and we can negotiate for better things in general. And when we do this, just think about it. We're promoting a transformation of this city. We're thinking about the electric city of the future. We're thinking about fully electrified buildings, fully electrified transport, and we're thinking about it. But we're also thinking, okay, if this is going to happen, we're going to need people. We're going to need to create a new workforce. So we partner with a number of organizations, including Cornell Cooperative Extension, to help develop the right workforce development program, where we can integrate the curriculum for apprenticeship certifications, micro-credentials. We're working with a ton of people to make this possible. We estimate that we're going to create, just from these, about 400 jobs locally. And what that means is we need to partner with other communities, because we're not going to have 400 workers for this particular project just from this community. So yeah, we're talking to the unions. We're talking to everybody that does workforce development. We're talking to people in Ithaca, in Syracuse, in Binghamton, and every municipality in between. So we're doing a very large number of things. And yeah, a lot of the work is going to go to energy efficiency. It's going to go to the retrofitting part, because once again, we're talking about buildings that, in some cases, they were built so long ago, before 1920, and not all of them have had all the work that they need to be as efficient as they could be. So very likely we're going to have to take a look. We're going to have to do energy assessments, and we're going to start with low and moderate income communities, because what we need to do is also to make sure that this is fair. So at the same time that we design the program, that we design, the financial aspects of this program, we're going to be working with everybody, because we need to understand how better we can help, the low moderate income. And Donnel, you just mentioned right now that, you have an investor who's the state government, you have NYSERDA behind, you have the Green Bank, you have the federal government. They all have, as part of their guidelines, either Justice 40 from the federal government, or through the CLCPA, they're talking about a just transition and enabling, the redirecting all these benefits to low-income communities. So, for example, in the case of energy efficiency retrofitting, of course, we're going to be looking at, helping those buildings that are, in poor shape, so we can improve them, and we can make sure that, they are as efficient as possible before we do electrification. And if we combine that with all the work that we're doing to greening the grid, then at some point we're talking about, carbon neutral buildings. And then we're talking about helping people of low income. And then we're talking about, one of the things that I don't know if Donnel, you could talk, or Colin, if you could talk some more about, is how are we going to help people, of low income participate in this program? Because I believe that, you're looking at forms of credit enhancement, forms of loan guarantees, loan loss reserves, and all that is just, a bunch of words to say, we're looking into ways of making sure that people have access to everything that we are providing, either a financial product or a technology or work in general, or they have access to training programs. This is for the community as a whole. So here, I don't know, like Colin or Donnel, if you guys want to add anything about that.
Yeah, Cullen, do you want to
Yeah,
share a little bit?
I can
Yeah.
give some specifics on, from a financial standpoint, how we can really work with the low income community in different ways. First of all, we've built a credit underwriting, right? Like a credit analysis system that's different from other folks. We've looked at community banks, we've looked at alternative lenders, and we've really learned what we can so that we can do financing based on more than a FICO score, financing based on more than just the traditional things that might deny, that might cause other lenders to deny folks. So with that, we can work with a broader scope of the community. We can look at things holistically and really try to understand the, all of the financing risks there in a way that other folks don't think as deeply about. To go further as well, we've been having conversations with a number of foundations and with other organizations, public sector organizations that can provide additional guarantees and support. And that really helps us to drive down the financing costs, right? And when the financing costs can come down, you can really have an equitable situation, right? There's no value in going in and doing sort of like a rent-a-center model here. We're really driving financing costs down so that they're as low and lower than they are to the general population for lower income folks. And that helps increase accessibility.
And I love that, man, because I think, for a really long time, the city of Ithaca, it's not that bad. But, the reality is that we haven't done right by a lot of people. And it's time that we do that. And, part of this whole movement, it has to do with a just transition, enabling a just transition, participation of everybody in the community that needs to be part of this. So I really, really admire, the model that you are proposing. I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult to pull off. But I really think it's about, partnership. It's about working together as a community. So in terms of how are we going to identify these buildings to work on, I don't know, Donnel, what do you think? I mean, are we going to walk around the street and then figure out, or are we going to, how do we do this? How do we identify those buildings that really need help, and how do we make them part of this program?
Yeah, well, there's a mix of ways to do that. One of the things we want to do is work with Cornell and other educational institutions, even high schools if we can, to build a map of every building inside the city of Ithaca. And based on the building's age, the type of construction material that it has, its plumbing and permitting records, its property tax records, we can actually begin to build a statistical model of what kinds of clean energy and sustainability upgrades will make sense for that building. And that statistical model can help us understand, it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's accurate enough to say, well, we got 6,000 buildings and approximately 4,500 of them are going to need heat pumps. And then, 5,000 of them are great candidates for solar, but only 1,000 of them are great candidates for geothermal. And so we can start to provide a score and a ranking to all of the different buildings as we assess the kinds of needs that they have. So that's one part, and you do that from data. So that's part one. Part two is, yeah, you do want to send out a team of canvassers who are members of the community, maybe they're college students, who we train, and they collect information from conversations with building owners to make the information about their building more accurate. Does this building have a gas furnace? How old is it? Is it working well? And so there's those kinds of questions that can be asked door to door. They can also be asked via phone bank, with a phone bank that calls every building owner in the city of Ithaca. And then there's a digital and online platform where there's community-based advertisements, there's blog posts, there's ways of engaging building owners on social media to help educate them on the possibilities of going green. So we want to create as broad a picture as possible of each and every building and its physical characteristics and what that building needs to go green. And we will also want to create or figure out as many characteristics as we can about the building owners and the needs that they have. Some people may want to go into retirement. Some people may want to borrow against their first building in order to buy a second building to have rental revenue or something like that. So, a lot of buildings are going to be buildings with landlords who rent to college kids, right? And so buildings have different needs, but we want to list as many of those needs as we can for all of the buildings across Ithaca, and that listing and that database will help us to determine what kind of strategies make sense in implementation. But the one principle that we do know is going to be central is that once we have that data, we're going to be partnering closely with a community advisory board of community leaders from Ithaca who are working hand in hand with us to determine what mix of green energy technologies makes sense for each and every building across the city, and then working to educate every building owner around the green energy technology that's recommended for their building and helping them understand why it's going to make their building healthier, greener, and more profitable. And we think if you can make building owners, help them understand that, they're going to do the right thing, which is to make more money and reduce emissions and reduce the amount of asthma and pollution that are caused by their building. So we believe that building owners want to do the right thing.
And we also obviously, we had this RFP, as you know, and because what we wanted was to, figure out a comprehensive way of approaching this problem. And we went at it with gusto, man. We actually tried to identify everything that we could do to improve things. And then we started looking at, like how we're going to allocate the work and the amount of money that we have and everything, trying to identify, who do we have to serve? And we realized that there is a larger than what we would like to admit chunk of the population that need more help than the rest. And, there's a lot of low income people that have 3 jobs that during COVID had to go to work because there was no other way of bringing, food to the table or to pay for rent. So there's a number of people that we have clearly identified, and the idea is to help them. But I was wondering, have you had experience with this? Have you had experience in your work, for example, in Brooklyn, like with really low income people? Like, have you done this, at that level? Have you worked with low income families and helped them to be more energy efficient and to reduce the energy bill at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've worked with very low-income buildings and low-income families. There's actually a piece that NPR, National Public Radio, did where they interviewed some of the low-income families that we've worked with where we've put in heat pumps. And Luis, I can find that, or maybe Keith or Cullen, if you could put that into the chat, or Molly, that NPR interview with 838 Park Place. But we, that says a lot, right? That NPR sent out a journalist, they did the research, they interviewed a family that we'd worked with, and we've worked with lots and lots of low-income families. The majority, and I don't know if I've said this, the majority of the buildings that BlocPower works in are low-income and moderate-income buildings. So we, unlike many other companies that are in the clean energy field, other companies like to work with affluent people who care about the environment and have disposable income. We like to work with low and moderate income people. I grew up low income. That's my passion, is helping low and moderate income communities to reduce their expenses, to save money, to get jobs, to develop economically, to develop a workforce composed of low-income people. That's what I come from. That's what my family comes from. And so we think it's really important to have low-income people not even benefit from clean energy. We want low-income people to lead the clean energy revolution. And that's what we're about at BlocPower. And so our corporate mission is around serving low-income communities. We think we're very good at it. We think we're one of the best companies in the country at actually serving low-income people and helping them. And there's a range of case studies and folks that we work with who can attest to that.
That is just awesome. And to be honest, it's one of those things. We have been working on this for a while. We consider ourselves not necessarily experts in everything, but we understand climate change and we understand what it does to the world, what it does to people. We want to change things for the better. And I love the fact that every time we have one of these achievements, and it's funny because in the great context of things, people may minimize these achievements, but just helping one single low-income family, to reduce the energy bill at the end of the month, or to help them to improve their houses, it's just one of those things that's the reason why we do all of this. I'm going to address something that you and I haven't really talked about this, Donnel, but I want to share this with you. We've been talking to the utility company a lot, and the reason is because we're conscious that we're going to have a bunch of heat pumps installed, and we're going to replace natural gas or propane or fuel oil furnaces. We're going to increase the load. We're going to increase the demand for electricity in the city, and we are concerned that the city is not going to have the right distribution grid infrastructure to cope with it. But then, on one hand, we have seen that, yeah, we do have the right infrastructure in some places, and in others, we can plan for upgrades. We are talking about energy storage, we're talking about other things, and we're even talking to the Public Service Commission, and I want people to know that we understand a lot of the things that go into doing this. It's not only from the buildings perspective, it's not only from the technology perspective or even financial. There is infrastructure, and right now with the new bill that was signed in Washington, basically now there's access to new incentives. There is access to incentives to improve infrastructure to make this possible. So we did this at the best possible time, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy about that. So we're getting to the end of this, Donnel. So I wanna do this. I'm gonna summarize what I learned from you, and I don't know if you want to summarize what you have learned from the City of Ithaca after I go. But what I learned is that you, because of life experience, and because at some point you realize that you need to do better, you need to do this for the planet, for your family, for your 6-year-old, you're together with other guys that are just with similar experiences. You created a company which is a public benefit company that specializes in transforming lives through energy efficiency, through electrification. And you didn't create a for-profit organization necessarily to become a millionaire. You did this, and the comparison with Tesla was very interesting. If I understand correctly, this company, what they want to do is to change things for the better and make people's lives better. And we are now working together on a challenge that you are taking gladly, but not lightly. And at the same time, you are interested in working with the community. You are interested in providing the right financing so we can have also financial inclusion in this program. And we're talking about being, I just love how you said, like, not everything worked out. And then in another moment you said, it's not perfect. Of course it's not, and I really like that idea of, we come here with our best intentions, our best technology, but we still need help. So that's what I learned from you. And I think this is awesome, man. I'm really, really happy, really proud. And, I hope that this program is going to work out for everybody in the community.
No, it will. We're committed to that. We will find ways to make it work. We don't promise that it's going to work on day 0 or day 1, but we do promise that 10 years from now, this will have worked. That's our commitment. And we generally try to follow through in our commitment. So I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be painless. But I do think it's important, and it's hard and complicated, but it's doable. And I think that we can do it. I think that I was surprised by how inspired I personally am by Luis, by you, and by the mayor, and by the city council. It's been a long 4 or 5 years with the administration that just left the federal government. It's a pretty dark time in many ways for different parts of the country. And Ithaca, you guys are there, so I keep coming back to it because you may not see it. I know you must be hearing from family members and friends around the world, but Ithaca really injected hope into the climate movement globally. And I don't know if you guys are seeing that, but because I'm overseas in the middle and all the climate movement people are here, like I talked to Vice President Al Gore, I talked to the Secretary of Energy, like I've seen them. And people are just so excited. The state of New York is here, in Scotland. The president of NYSERDA is here. The person from the utility company that Luis spoke to, she's here. And everyone is just so excited and happy and pleased. about Ithaca and the courage that you guys have shown and the optimism and hopefulness that you guys have shown in a moment that's really kind of dark, to be honest. I mean, we don't have to pretend otherwise. We're adults on this call, right? And there's no kids on this call, I don't think. I mean, Rebecca, you can let us know. But if there is, like, we can be optimistic and hopeful, and Ithaca has given that to the country and to the state and to the world. And I'm just really excited and really pleased to have the opportunity for my team, for us to learn from you all, to work with you all. The other thing I learned is people in Ithaca are really engaged. So folks have great questions that are very specific. And it's like, look, I had an electric heating system 30 years ago and it didn't work. So you're going to have to talk with me about that. But that's exactly what we're here to do. We will figure out the address where you were and why that system didn't work and why the system that we're going to put in soon in your new home will work, and make sure that you believe that. And so I'm really excited about the level of enthusiasm and engagement that folks in Ithaca have. The other thing that I didn't realize is how much fun people in Ithaca have. You guys are actually a lot of fun. And we need more of that down in New York City. So we're really looking forward to spending more and more time with you guys and to building something that the whole human race can be proud of.
Well, we're looking forward to this. I know that Mayor Savante Myrick is looking forward to this. We've been talking nonstop about this program. We've been talking about what you are doing in Europe, what we're doing together. We're hoping that you guys will be in town soon. So, not only us, but the community get to meet you. And, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about SAVIT. We'll talk about everything that comes after, but for now, I really appreciate this. Rebecca, I don't know, what else do you think we should cover here?
I don't think we've got anything else. I know we had a lot of questions that we just didn't have time to answer, and we're not losing sight of those. I did record all of those, and we'll chat internally about how we can best address those questions, whether it's a frequently asked questions page or something like that. But to Donnel's point, we know that Ithaca is really engaged, and that's really the beauty of the city, that everybody really just wants what's best for everyone in this community. But thank you both so much for taking time out of your day. I think this was really, really helpful. Hopefully folks got at least some of their questions answered, and we'll continue kind of keeping in touch to get the rest answered. But otherwise, this has been really great. Thank you.
No, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Luis. And thank you, Ithaca. We love you. We'll be out there soon. Have a good afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you.